We are learning that CNN will hold an exclusive interview with Kamala Harris, her first since becoming the Democratic presidential nominee. Her running mate, Tim Walz, will join as well for this first interview. This is also their first interview together as the Democratic ticket. And in speaking with the campaign, they've made the point that you just did. It's been a busy 30-plus days. She's had a lot to do, not least of which was last week at the DNC. But as you note, that was all very scripted. So how much more revealing can an interview like this be for the voters? And I guess more importantly, for those undecideds who are still going to be making up their minds the next few weeks.
Yeah, so I don't think voters look at it like we do and say, oh, do an interview, take more questions.
And tell afterwards, perhaps, when something.
Exactly, but I do think voters learn valuable information from a candidate seeking the highest office in the land about how they think in these unscripted moments and how they think through a pressing challenge or question that they are being asked. So they are valuable to voters.
Unscripted? The last time Harris went to an interview without a script, she got embarrassed. Remember when she was told that she hasn't been to the border? That interview built doubt in her mind and made most of us realize that she's not ready to answer impromptu questions. Now, we could take their word for it, but it's unlikely that an unscripted interview actually happens. Although there is a chance that most questions will be taken by Tim Walz. What's hilarious to many critics is that she can't even do a sit-down interview on her own. She's basically being babysat by Tim Walz. She needs to have Walz guiding her because her handlers are probably worried about letting her speak by herself. They're also going off this message that they're going to give the people what they want and need, but they can't even give us a solo interview. And guys, before we get into this, all I ask is that you take a second, hit the like button for the video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and subscribing to the channel and for sharing this video on Facebook and Twitter.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know, what can be unburdened by what has been. There are those who are unable to see what can be, but there are many more who are able to see what can be unburdened by what has been. Remember Venn diagrams, those three circles? Right. And then let's just see where they overlap. You will not be surprised because I have constructed a Venn diagram on this. Remember those three circles, how they overlap? I love Venn diagrams, so I just do. Whenever you're dealing with conflict, pull out a Venn diagram, right? And so, you know, the three circles.
Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically, that's wrong.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
So now it makes sense why Harris is running from her debate with Donald Trump. They're trying to change the rules at the last minute because her team has finally realized that she's lost without her script. She can't go off the cuff, and when she does, it becomes a meme. And just to prove my point here, guys, here's two completely different events where Harris says the exact same thing.
We know our immigration system is broken. And we know what it takes to fix it. Comprehensive reform that includes, yes, strong border security and an earned pathway to citizenship.
Now, there was a lot that went into this decision. Even getting the right network was supposedly a big deal for Kamala Harris and her team. This because Kamala Harris gave themselves a 30-day deadline to get her first sit-down interview scheduled. Now, scheduled is different from actually having the interview itself, so we got to be mindful of that. Her campaign staff also talked to different reporters and asked them who they thought should interview Kamala Harris first. Now, it's been said that TV producers from big-name anchors were calling the campaign to pitch their talent as the one that Harris needs to have this first interview with. Now, obviously, because a lot of people will watch it, it is being hailed as their first unscripted interview since being nominated. Political press has urged that the VP do a lengthy, serious interview with someone who can push her on issues. However, Kamala Harris herself has said that this isn't the way for her. Now, you guys might remember that her 60-minute interview with Bill Whitaker, it ended up in flames as she scoffed at not being to the border at all. This left a lot of her aides unhappy, so it's obvious that tough questions are completely out of the equation. Which now brings us to who they actually chose. Surprise, surprise, they're going with CNN anchor Dana Bash. Oh, who is she? This is her in a nutshell.
Harris was put in charge, as you said earlier, of combating the roots of immigration. She was not and is not the border czar.
And the Biden administration did task Vice President Kamala Harris with the issue of migrant crossings, naming her the so-called border czar.
Look, unfortunately for America, the court isn't necessarily wrong that this is the way the framers wanted it to be. They wanted Congress, the people who are closest to their constituents, to be able to make the rules of the laws.
You well know the Trump administration negotiated the withdrawal agreement from Afghanistan with the Taliban and the State Department.
A conditional agreement, and he left Bagram Air Base. He left 2,500 troops. His advisors came to him and said, the Taliban haven't lived up to it. And he said, fine, deal's off. So how is it that the Democrats can back away from the Iran deal, from the border, from Keystone XL, can turn the page on literally dozens of Trump policies, but yet they're going to convince us that they were somehow handcuffed with a Doha agreement that Trump himself said the Taliban didn't live up to? It's a bunch of BS. And they know it. And to not acknowledge that is a slap in the face to the veterans and the Gold Star families.
Senator, and they're the ones that have gone after political opponents.
There's no evidence that Joe Biden has gone after political opponents.
That's right, guys. The same Dana Bash that has acted as a mouthpiece for the liberal left. So to say that this interview will be unscripted is a laugh and a half. And of course, we can't forget about Governor Tim Walz. He's going to be there too to kind of hold her hand through this entire interview. However, this serves another purpose. It's possible that we don't see any solo sit-down interviews for Walz too, as he himself might not be aware of Harris's stand on every issue. Now, this is straight off of Politico, folks. The concern is that even he isn't too sure about the policies that Kamala Harris is going to stand on. So if your running mate isn't aware of your own key policies, then you know you're in trouble. Now, what's also worrying is that she has an entire team deciding on this one interview. And just to give you guys an idea, here's a down low. The key person in getting this deal done with CNN was Harris's campaign senior advisor of communications. That's Brian Fallon. Although it was coordinated with her official office, in which her communications director, Kristen Allen, also had a say. They also supposedly ran it through Stephanie Cutter, her senior advisor for message and strategy, not to mention the different senior advisors within her team. It's been said that both Maya Harris and Tony West, her sister and brother-in-law, also had a hand in deciding on this event. And just to reiterate, guys, this is just one TV appearance. So for it to go through so many people is alarming, because it's kind of like she can't even decide on something on her own. You really think she's gonna really lead this country? I don't think so. This isn't a talk with the likes of Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping. She's gonna be talking to CNN of all networks. They're gonna throw her underhanded pitches all day long, pre-scripted, and with an anchor who acts as a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party, which just goes to show you that Kamala Harris is not built for interviews or even public speaking engagements. But I think that's probably been proven already. No wonder people are calling her such a fake. And seriously, guys, they need to stick to a lane. They call Trump a dictator, then they turn around and steal his policies. Seriously, that's not cool, man. In fact, hashtag Copycat Kamala started trending after this. Here's some of my favorites for you guys. So Elizabeth McDonald says, Kamala Harris's first big policy idea is to steal Trump's no taxes on tips when she backed Democrats' $80 billion for IRS audits, including on tip income. The Biden-Harris administration also launched a novel new IRS crackdown on tips, getting the IRS inside the door at bars and restaurants to directly monitor tips at the cash register at point of sale. She also backed the $1.7 trillion spending legislation, expecting taxpayers to report their $600 phone app transactions to the IRS without she and the Senate reading the bill, later dropped as untenable. Libs of TikTok. Just last year, the IRS under the Biden-Harris administration made plans to crack down on tips. Now Kamala is stealing Trump's policy of no tax on tips. Hashtag Copycat Kamala. Chaya Rachik, stolen valor, stolen policies, stolen nomination. The ticket is the most fake and forced campaign in history. Charlie Kirk, unreal. Kamala just stole President Donald Trump's no tax on tips. What a shameless phony. Colin Rugg, breaking. VP Kamala Harris takes Donald Trump's no tax on tips plan and shares it as her own during her Las Vegas rally. Remarkable. The statement comes as Harris is also trying to steal Donald Trump's stance on a secure border. And seriously, guys, when Donald Trump came up with this, mainstream media criticized him hard for it. But when she does it, all we hear is praise. You gotta wonder if these people are really clowns. You know what I mean? And this is not the only thing that critics are calling Kamala Harris out for. Just now, they ripped the vice president as inauthentic for giving nearly identical speeches at separate rallies. I mean, you got to see it for yourself here, guys.
Here, let's take a look at the montage of Kamala Harris sounding like she's on a loop. Let's play it.
It really is good to be back in Wisconsin. It is so good to be back in Michigan. Listen, let me tell you, I am clear. The path to the White House runs right through this state. And listen, I am clear. The path to the White House runs right through this state. I took on perpetrators of all kinds. I took on perpetrators of all kinds and had a summer job at McDonald's. I had a summer job at McDonald's. So hear me when I say, so hear me, Detroit, when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. I know Donald Trump's type. And are we ready to fight for it? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win.
Fox News contributor Gianno Caldwell said this is Hillary Clinton 3.0. She's inauthentic and she's going to continue to be that way. Fox News contributor Joe Concha also connected this to Kamala Harris's recent movement where the vice president answered reporter questions for a whopping 2 minutes. I mean, what is that? Don't we deserve better as voters? Well, you guys can check out our breakdown right here in our video today. Go ahead and stay right there. We're going to go ahead and dive right in. So yeah, just as you guys have noticed, Vice President Kamala Harris is under fire from critics and conservatives for copying former President Donald Trump's campaign vow to not tax service industry employees' tips, especially after the Biden-Harris administration itself rolled out a plan to crack down on waiters' tips. Meanwhile, they're the reason tips needed a tax break in the first place. But did Kamala Harris even acknowledge that in her copycat speech? Nope. It was just a promise to everyone here that when she's president, she says she will continue to fight for working families, including to raise the minimum wage and eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers. You see, Donald Trump had already vowed earlier this summer that he would eliminate taxes on service industry tips if reelected to the Oval Office, and included the promise on the 2024 GOP platform. He said hotel workers and people that get tips, you're going to be very happy because when he gets in office, he's going to not charge taxes on tips, people making tips. And he also added it's been a point of contention for years and years and years, and these people do a great job of service. They take care of people, and Trump thinks is going to be something that really is deserved. I mean, can you see the difference between the two? No matter how hard Kamala tries to copy Donald Trump, it's like night and day when you compare their intentions behind the policy. You know what I mean? Drop me a quick yes or no in the comments down below if you guys are with me. And while you guys are there, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That way you guys can stay informed and updated on the latest in the election, not to mention Kamala Harris's latest recent shenanigans. Now, of course, Donald Trump quickly called out Kamala Harris for copying his policy, saying how her honeymoon period is ending and she's starting to get hammered in the polls, so she resorted to copying his no taxes on tips policy. He also said Kamala is probably not even going to do it, that she just wants it for political purposes. Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., echoed his father's comments, sharing a video of Harris's announcement during the Saturday rally and writing on X, formerly Twitter, Harris Waltz 2024, stolen proposals and stolen valor. I mean, Kamala did have 4 years to do it already, but she's done nothing. But instead, the Biden-Harris administration decided to go after waiters instead. Yep, that's right, guys. The Biden administration rolled out a voluntary tip reporting system last year for industry workers that works to streamline tax compliance on tips. The IRS said in a press release last year that they, with the Treasury Department, issued the notice 2023-13, which contains a proposed revenue procedure that would establish the Service Industry Tip Compliance Agreement, the SITCA program, a voluntary tip reporting program between the IRS and employers in various service industries. It was criticized by tax experts at the time as a crackdown on waitresses' tips after the IRS hired 87,000 new agents under the Biden administration. Representative Mike Kelly, the chairman of the Ways and Means Subcommittee on Tax, he brought it up saying that Washington has a spending problem, not a revenue problem. And now, with this sudden notice, the IRS is going after middle-income families and working moms and dads who are just trying to make ends meet and put food on the table. He said that they've warned for months that the IRS would start targeting hardworking Americans in the Biden administration's quest for more taxpayer dollars. Now, we're starting to see some of these concerns actually come to fruition. And now that Harris is running for presidency, she's trying to walk back what they did, considering how the idea to eliminate federal taxes on tips for service workers is likely to appeal to voters in the swing state of Nevada, where thousands of casino employees depend on gratuities. I mean, can you believe this, guys? And that isn't even the whole of it. Because see, Kamala Harris was also called out recently for delivering almost identical speeches at separate rallies. Hillary Clinton 3.0, they call her. This is on top of her reluctance to answer questions from the press. I mean, you saw the side-by-side earlier. Those were taken from separate Kamala Harris rallies in Wisconsin and Michigan. The vice president repeated a line about the path to the White House running through their state. I mean, what kind of path is this really that runs through both Wisconsin and Michigan? She also flashed back to the summer job she had at McDonald's while in college and reiterated that she knows Donald Trump's type. Fox News contributor Gianno Caldwell described her as Hillary Clinton 3.0. She's inauthentic, and she's going to continue to be that way. She's fake. Caldwell, along with Fox News contributors Joe Concha and Miranda Devine and Fox News anchor Anita Vogel, honed in on Kamala Harris's voice of words during the rally and her lack of words when speaking to the press. So Concha pointed out how Kamala Harris answered reporter questions for a whopping 2 minutes. Vogel called it absolutely insulting. She said that the press should be insulted that she's not taking the time to answer their questions, that it doesn't matter whether she's a man or a woman, she's a candidate for the president of the United States, and she needs to be taking questions from the press. Devine offered her take next, that if she can't take questions from the media, it means there's something wrong. She's trying to hide something. She's trying to hide from scrutiny, and it's because her record is so appalling and her ability to articulate a point is really lacking. Kamala Harris said that they want to get an interview scheduled before the end of the month, but come on, guys. Now, speaking of which, it's not every day that a TV host that usually speaks positively about the left is heard criticizing them. But Jon Stewart went there after he himself could not deny the hypocrisy of some of these people. Now, guys, I did a previous video where I cover this, and you guys won't believe what he said on national television. Before I go, I just want to thank y'all so much for being here. Look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Thank you for hitting the like button and sharing this video. Take care.